So we are now over halfway into this championship season, and although the league table is still very close, it has started to shape up, and I think we've got a general idea as to where each club will be finishing come the end of the season. We've got a general gist of it at the moment. As you can see on screen now, that is the current league table. So the bottom three, we've got Luton Town, Barnsley and Wigan Athletic. Then making up the top six, we've got Millwall, Fulham, Forest, Brentford, West Brom and Leeds United. Obviously, we did have the games going on yesterday on New Year's Day. We'll be discussing them throughout today's video. We also have two games going on in the championship tonight as well. We'll be discussing them in tomorrow's video in a little bit more detail. But what I thought we'd do today is take a trip back to the start of the season when I made my championship predictions and look back on how every club's doing now compared to where I predicted them to finish. I'm not gonna lie, I had some shockers in there, and where a club does finish could be impacted heavily by the January transfer window. If you'd like to see a video of my updated championship predictions from now until the end of the season, leave a like on today's video and I'll get working on that one. But without any further ado, let's take a look at my predictions from the start of the season. So starting out at the bottom of the table, these were the three who I was fancying to go down at the start of the season. I had Charlton, Wigan and Millwall in there. I've already had one shocker as Millwall currently find themselves sat in the top six, but we'll start out at the bottom with Charlton, who currently find themselves 19th in the table. They started the year out like an absolute house on fire. When Lee Bowyer had a full squad to pick from, Charlton were playing some brilliant football. They were in the top six, they were scoring a lot of goals, but then this whole injury crisis came about them. I think at the moment they've got 13 players that are injured. Macaulay Bonne and Jonathan Lecco, the recent players to be added to that injury list, with Jonathan Lecco now out for the entire season. They have just completed the loan signing of Andre Green for the rest of the season. I'm excited to see how he gets on there. Obviously spent the first half of the season on loan at North End, where he didn't really get a chance to shine, but I think that in a side like Charlton, could show some flashes there. I think for Charlton, more than anyone else, January is going to be absolutely crucial for them. They have just announced the takeover, which has been a long time coming. Moving forward into the future, that should be a real positive for the club. But like I said, with the situation they're currently in and the thin squad they've got at the moment, relegation is still a possibility, but you'd imagine if they get a few more bodies in January, start to get players returning for the back end of the season, I think they will go on to survive, because with a full squad, I really do rate Bowyer as a manager. Wigan above that, I'm not too far off on Wigan. They had a really positive transfer window in the summer. I thought they splashed quite a bit of money, and looking over their squad, it's not a bad team they've got in there. It's just I'm still not completely sold on Paul Cook. I think that game management is something that Wigan have struggled with throughout this season. You know, they've dropped an abundance of points from winning positions throughout the year. They did pick up a very dramatic win on New Year's Day though, 3-2 away at Birmingham, where they have levelled the amount of away wins they've got for 2020 that they had in 2019 already, and we're only 2 days into January. They only won one away match for the whole of 2019, that was against Leeds. So if they can pick up their away form for the rest of the year, they got a fighting chance of staying up, but it's very tight at the bottom at the moment. And then my last club I said will go down were Millwall. Now, to be fair to me, at the start of the season, it looked like Millwall may be heading that way. Under Neil Harris, things had turned a little bit sour. Those two obviously parted ways. I think that that's been the best thing for his and Millwall's career so far. Since Gary Rowett has come in though, Millwall have been on a really consistent run of results. They're now set in the top six. They're capable of switching up their system. They can play in a contrasting variety of ways. And you'd have to say they're probably one of the sides at the moment who no one is fancying facing at this time. I also think they're quite representative of that Millwall side that first got promoted to the Championship and had a real good go at getting into the top six. I'd say that as well, the quality in the Championship this year I don't think is that great, apart from the top two who are like miles away from everyone else at the moment. The rest of the top six, I don't think there's all too much quality in there compared to previous years, and that does give a real outsider like Millwall a chance to go on and finish there, because no one really can string together a consistent run of results. Next up, we move into the teams who I was predicting to finish just above the relegation zone, and I don't think my shoutouts have been all too bad here. To finish in 21st, I had Luton Town, who are currently sat bottom of the Championship. To be fair to Luton, they have been outside the bottom three for the majority of the season so far. It's just that after a dodgy festive period, they have been dragged back down and are currently sat at the bottom of the table. Interestingly, the majority of teams at the bottom, apart from Wigan and Luton, really have all parted ways with their manager. Luton have stuck with Jones so far, but you feel as if there are growing frustrations among that fan base. They do currently have the worst defensive record in the league, conceding 56 goals so far this season. In their last 3 matches, they've conceded 9 goals now. January's going to be another big one for Luton, I think. QPR in 20th, I was a little bit off on there, currently sat 15th in the table. I think that sometimes we forget that what Mark Warburton was actually working with during the summer, he didn't get the chance to spend any money. All the players that he brought in were either on loans or freebies, and considering the situation they are currently in, I I think he's done a good job there. Obviously, I think that QPR defined the phrase hit or miss in the Championship. On New Year's Day, they put 6 goals past Cardiff after going on a bit of a dodgy run themselves in the league. But what a performance that was. Nahki Wells getting back in the goals after looking a bit shy in front of goal before that, scoring a hat-trick. Samuel getting 2 more goals. I think that QPR have some of the most exciting attacking options in the league, actually. Obviously, we talk about Eze week in, week out. I'm sure that he's going to attract a lot of interest in January. But QPR, I think, are going solid so far. Defensively, they've got issues there to sort out. But with what Mark Warburton's been working with, I think they are sort of where you expect them to be, if not a little bit better off. I thought they'd be struggling for relegation this year. I did have Barnsley in 19th. They are currently sat in the relegation zone, but they have gone 5 games unbeaten in the Championship, and under Struber seem to be going in the right direction. After coming up from League One, where they had a really solid defensive record, they were scoring a lot of goals. They had a bit of a hectic transfer window, a lot of players in, and a few big names going out as well. A lot of young talent coming into the squad. Obviously, that was always going to be a bit of a risk. I liked some of the names that they were bringing in, but it turned out to be too much too quickly. Obviously, in the end, they ended up parting company with Stendhal. But even now, they seem to be heading in that right direction and could possibly go on and survive. A few weeks ago, they were looking destined for relegation. They were cut off at the bottom of the Championship, but after going on this recent unbeaten run, they've given themselves a fighting chance. I have Birmingham in 18th, and funnily enough, that's exactly where they're currently sat in the table. With Birmingham, things are never guaranteed to be boring. I think that that's the least you can say about Blues at the moment. In their last 3 home matches, they've scored 8 goals, and they picked up 0 points from any of them. I think there is a growing frustration among the fan base with Pep there at the moment, but I think that above that and the whole way that the club's been run over the last few years, I don't think there's going to be any real change at the club until that sort of thing does change. I mean, like last season we saw Gary Monk really working wonders with that team, really, to get them into the position he did with the points deduction and the financial restraints on the club. He then left in the summer. There was a whole falling out there. Pep came in. Not a lot of people knew what to expect from him, and what we're getting from Birmingham at the moment, looking at their squad, is sort of what I'd expect. With a fairly inexperienced manager trying to implement a new philosophy into the club, things haven't always worked out. They play good football at times, but it's not always stuck. They had an interesting summer transfer window, obviously Sunjic being the main man coming in for them, but they've still got massive holes to fill in their squad. I think frustration more than anything else has summed their season up so far. In 17th, I had Reading. Reading always seems to be the team that promises a lot at the start of the season, but ends up failing to deliver, and they fall short of expectations. I was kind of gutted that things didn't work out with Jose Gomez. I had the feeling that a lot of Reading fans felt the same as well. They all seem to really like him, the way they ended last season as well. Things this season just didn't quite get off going in the right direction, and they ended up parting company with him. They then went ahead and appointed Mark Bowen, who I don't think anyone was expecting much from, really, but they've gone on a fantastic run recently and are now only 5 points off the playoffs, sat 14th in the table. I laughed when they made the signing of Charlie Adam in the summer, but he's more than proved me wrong. Like, I go as far to say that Charlie Adam, John Swift and Ajaria, one of the best midfield trios in the league. Charlie Adam was on the score sheet once again for Reading the other day as they beat Fulham by 2 goals to 1. Who knows what's possible for them for the rest of the season. Mark Bowen, I wasn't expecting him to be any good, but fair play, he's proved me wrong so far. I was quite a bit off on Hull. I had them in 16th. They're currently sat 8th in the table. I think that Grant McCann's actually done a really good job there. Over the summer, I wasn't really sure what to expect from Hull. With Nigel Atkins leaving, things looked to be a little bit turbulent at the club, but after the fantastic job that he'd done at Doncaster, he's gone and run with this Hull squad and is getting a real tune out of them at the moment. Only 1 loss in their last 5 matches. Jared Bowen on the score sheet once again on New Year's Day as they beat Sheffield Wednesday by 1 goal to 0. We like to joke about Hull on the channel a bit, being one of the most unpredictable sides in the Championship, and they are just that. You never really know quite what you're going to get from them. But I think that level of inconsistency, like a lot of Championship clubs, is to be expected. We've had a real variety of performances from them so far this season, but when they are on it, one of the most enjoyable sides to watch. I had Sheffield Wednesday in 15th. That was before they appointed Gary Monk, and there was a bit of turbulence around Sheffield Wednesday in the summer as well. Obviously, they had Steve Bruce going into the season. He then left to go to Newcastle, and we weren't sure what was going to happen with them. They could also still be facing a points deduction depending on what happens with the whole EFL things and the regulations there, but Sheffield Wednesday is an interesting one. They're sat 7th in the table at the moment. They are currently on a bit of a dodgy run. They have lost their last 3 matches. Before that, they were looking really good. They were as high as 3rd at one point. With Wednesday where they are at the moment, though, I think it just goes to show how open the top 6 is this season. I think there's a lot of clubs like Sheffield Wednesday who, when I look at their squad, I think it's a good Championship mid-table squad, but with how open the league is this season, there's a real chance for them to go on and finish in the top 6. They've got some real quality in there. I thought they picked up some bargains during the summer transfer window as well, but at times they can just look a little bit too rigid. I have Blackburn in 14th. They're currently 1 place higher than that in 13th. At the start of the season, people weren't too happy with Tony Mowbray. The football wasn't great, but then they went on this miraculous run, got to within touching distance of the top 6, and then lately have fallen back off a little bit. Obviously, the injury to Bradley Dack really probably is going to hamper their season. He's out for up to a year now, and replacing his quality for the foreseeable future isn't going to be an easy one. I think they're another team who, when I look at their squad, it's a solid championship squad, but with how open the top 6 is this season, if they can put together a consistent run for the end of the season, they've got a shot as well, because it's just so open this year. I had Preston to finish in 13th. I wasn't really too convinced with our summer transfer window that we'd had. I didn't really feel as if the board had completely backed Alex Neil, but we started the season off fantastically. A couple of months ago, we were at top of the championship. After going on a bit of a dodgy run over Christmas, we are now down to 9th, but you can't really read all too much into the table at the moment because of how close it is. Like, if we win our next 2 matches, we'll probably go back up to 3rd. Our last couple of results have been frustrating though. Back-to-back losses at home against Reading and then against Middlesbrough. A few frustrations and a few things that we were seeing last season. Teams that came to Deepdale and played in quite a low block, we struggled to break down, and that's been the case for our last 2 matches. Creativity has been a bit of an issue, especially since the injury of Daniel Johnson. We've not really been scoring many goals at all. I feel as if this January is massive for Preston and for a lot of the teams chasing the top 6 this season, because there's such a big drop off in quality, I feel, from the top 2 to the rest of the top 6, that because it is so open, it's anyone's game, and whoever fancies it this January is going to go on and make it into the top 6. Middlesbrough, I think, have been below expectations so far this season, but in fairness to them, Jonathan Woodgate has seemingly turned things around there. They've won their last 4 matches and are now up to 16th in the table after lingering around the bottom 3 for the majority of time before that. I had predicted them to finish in 12th. They were coming off the back of sort of a bit of a boring but consistent season under Tony Pulis. This was going to be Jonathan Woodgate's first season as a manager, so we didn't really know what to expect from him. He promised this sort of attacking philosophy to come in, and it's taken a bit of time for that to come in, but lately Middlesbrough have been scoring more goals. They've been looking tight at the back. They promoted a lot of youth players up into the first team who have had an impact on the squad. I saw them on New Year's Day, you know, they came to Deepdale and beat us, and more than anything, it was a much more assured performance than what we've been seeing from Middlesbrough lately. So if they can continue this for the rest of the season, they should go on to have a solid mid-table finish. It's been a bit of a frustrating one for Swansea. After starting the season out really well, they had fallen off a little bit, but are still in touch and distance. Like a lot of other sides that we mentioned previously, they are still in touch and distance of the top 6. In a summer where they did lose quite a bit of quality from their squad, with the likes of Daniel James and Ollie McBurney departing, there's still a lot of talent in there. Another side who over the past couple of years, since they have been back down in the Championship, has been promoting a lot of youth to their benefit. January is going to be another big one for Swansea. I don't feel as if Steve Cooper's always got things right for them, but with the position he's got them in at the moment, there's still that chance with the top 6. Huddersfield I did have a bit of a nightmare with. I predicted them to finish in 10th. They're currently sat 20th. I think the best thing that Huddersfield did was part company with Jan Siewert as early on in the season as they did. That allowed them to get Danny Cowley into the club, and I think that from what he took over at Huddersfield, the football he's now got them playing, the consistency of performances, the tempo's up around the club, I think the feel-good factor has been slowly creeping back in as well. There's still a long way to go for them, but they are building in the right direction. I predicted them to finish in 10th because even with how awful they were in that last season in the Premier League, I looked at their squad, and for the Championship, I still saw a lot of quality in there. If that potential can be unlocked and the Cowleys are given a couple of transfer windows to work with this Huddersfield squad, I still think there's a project there to work with. And then had Derby above that, another one where I've had a bit of a nightmare with this one. I expected the drop off from Derby from last season, with the lone players Mason Mount, Harry Wilson and Tamori all returning to their parent clubs, and with Frank Lampard leaving as well. I expected the drop off, but I didn't expect it to be just as dramatic as it was. I still thought they had a good enough squad in the Championship to be in and around the top 6 under a new manager like Philip Cocu, who I had quite high hopes for as well. I didn't expect the drop off to be this big. They're currently sat 17th in the Championship. They are in action tonight against Barnsley, and I'm interested to see how they go. What's just mad about the Championship is even Derby in 17th, they're only 9 points off the playoffs, which really isn't that big of a gap. You know, we've seen quite a few clubs recently go on a bit of a mad winning streak, so if Derby can do the same, then they completely compel themselves up the league. It's been a frustrating one, obviously. Everything that's happened with Derby off the pitch, with, you know, the drunk driving incident, the whole Richard Keogh situation, his contract and everything like that. Obviously, Wayne Rooney is coming in now to the squad. I'm interested to see if he features tonight, but it has been a bit of a car crash for their season so far. I did have Nottingham Forest finishing above Derby, but I wasn't quite bold enough to back them to go ahead and finish in the top 6. They're currently sat 4th, but as we know how close it is at the moment, a lot can change. They have, after going on a bit of a dodgy run, won their last 3 matches, so they've had a really positive festive period. If I was to compile my predictions for the top 6 as of this moment, I probably would have Nottingham Forest in that. I think that over January, looking at everyone else, Nottingham Forest probably will be a club who are happy to invest in their squad. They've already got a lot of quality in there. Looking at what separates them from a lot of the other sides going for the top 6 this season, a striker like Lewis Grobban and the quality they have in midfield behind him. I had Bristol City just missing out on the top 6, and I could see a fairly similar occurrence this season. Bristol City seem to be caught in a loop in the Championship as they go through the same cycle every year. They have a really positive transfer window where they, over the last few years, you know, they have invested quite a bit of money into their squad. In fairness, they have sold players for a lot of money, but they seem to start off seasons seasons really well, and then around December time they just seem to fade away and fall off a little bit. They'll have a resurgence, but then that won't quite be enough to make it into the top 6. The jury is out at the moment with Lee Johnson after this dodgy run that they have gone on. Him and Thomas Frank had a bit of an interesting altercation at full time as they were heavily beaten by Brentford. It's no secret that they are going to be going in for a striker in January. Eddie Nketiah seems to be the #1 target at the moment. Can he be the man to change their fortunes? I'm interested to get your views on it, Bristol City fans. Then let's take a look at the top 6 I was predicting. So these are the sides who I was fancying to get the playoffs come the end of the season, and I already know I've had one absolute shocker in there. Stoke City in 6th place. What was I thinking? I thought that after a bit of time with Nathan Jones, they brought in some, championship experienced players during the summer. I thought that Stoke might finally be able to get their act together after a horrific debut season in the Championship. Somehow they've managed to be even worse this time round. In fairness, since appointing O'Neill, I think that things have started to look up for Stoke. They've been scoring a lot more goals and have been looking a little bit more assured at the back. They are sat 21st, so they are just outside the relegation zone at the moment, but they're going to have to keep up this consistency as the likes of Wigan and Barnsley have also seemingly turned the corner in their season at the moment. But for me to be predicting them to finish in the top 6, yeah, I was a bit off on that one. Cardiff above them, another one who I'm off on them as well. They're currently sat 12th in the table. I thought that after coming down under Neil Warnock, I watched obviously a lot of the Premier League, and from that season in the Premier League they had, I thought they got a little bit unlucky to go down in the end. They had a real desire about them. It was a fairly similar squad from the one that they were promoted last time out within the Championship, and with Warnock still being there, he knew the strengths of that team. They then went ahead and appointed Neil Harris, a decision which I wasn't convinced by at the time. They've had a fairly consistent start under him so far, although they did get battered on New Year's Day against QPR. In the end, I think it's probably just going to be a mid-table finish for them. Above that, I have Brentford, and I'm happy with this prediction at the moment. They're currently sat 3rd, and Brentford are looking like one of the only clubs who's maybe capable of catching the top 2 with the football they play. Obviously, I think that the forward 3 they've got there, probably one of the best, if not the most enjoyable to watch in the Championship. Ollie Watkins being played as a number 9 in the absence of Neil Maupay, who they lost in the summer. He's been absolutely revelling in that role. And then Ben Rama and Mbeumo, who's having a fantastic debut season in the Championship at either side of him. They've also improved defensively. I thought they had a really good summer transfer window, spent a lot of money in there, but that was mostly reinvested money of the money that they made up over the last few years through sales. And Thomas Frank, still a fairly inexperienced manager, really is getting a tune out of them at the moment. They beat Bristol City 4-0 on New Year's Day. Another great performance from them going forward. And then Fulham in 3rd, another prediction which I'm fairly happy with. They are sat in the top 6 at the moment. A lot of people were fancying Fulham to go on and make it into the top 2 this season. I wasn't quite fancying them for that, purely because I said it in the video at the start of the season. Defensively in the Premier League, they were an absolute mess, and they didn't really address that in the summer transfer window, and as well as that, the inexperience of Scott Parker. At times as well, they have been a little bit rigid going forward. They play this heavy possession-based football, which if a team knows how to counter that, you can stop Fulham fairly easily. And that shouldn't be the case with some of the options they have going forward. I would like to see them being a little bit more dynamic in the way they play in the second half of this season. Then as for the top 2, as of right now, I've got this one spot on. I had Leeds in 1st and West Brom in 2nd. I expected, looking at their squads from the start of the season, that those 2 sides would be the strongest this season. I didn't quite expect the gap between 2nd and 3rd to be quite as big as it is. To put it into context, Brentford are currently closer to QPR in 15th than they are to West Brom and Leeds in the top 2. Obviously, these 2 sides met on New Year's Day, and it was a fascinating battle between them. It did end as a 1-1 draw, so I did manage to get my prediction correct for that game. But come the end of the season, I think that something would have to go drastically wrong for either of them not to be promoted. I say that because these 2 so far this season have been able to maintain a level of consistency which no other side really sat below them currently has in their locker. I mean, West Brom so far this season have lost 2 matches. Brentford, who seem to be their closest competition at the moment, have lost 9. For Leeds to go wrong this season, you feel like they'd need to get an abundance of injuries, or for them to have a bit of a disaster of a January transfer window. If someone like Bamford was to get injured, and with Nketiah returning from his loan, for them not to bring in the backup striker or something like that. Teams do tend to up their game a little bit more when they are facing the top 2, and each of them have gone a bit of a dodgy run recently. Each of them have only won 1 out of their last 5 matches, but the point gap between them and the chasing pack still remains to be 9 points. I've got the feeling that they're both going to invest in their squads in January, and for the time being, I think it's a pretty safe bet that they'll be the top 2. So as you can see on screen now, guys, there were my Championship predictions for what I was fancying at the start of the season. I've had some shockers in there, but on the whole, I don't think I've done all too badly. I'm fairly happy with what I came up with. Obviously, this could all change by the time it is the end of the season, so get your thoughts in the comments down below as to where you think your club will finish at the end of the season. Have you been happy with your club's season this far in? But apart from that, that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So if you did go to enjoy, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you do subscribe subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.